Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Hi, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here again. It has been just so amazing to get all the great feedback lately, all the DMs, the messages, the posts, everything. I really appreciate the support. It's been so cool to see and hear all your main takeaways. And I do want to have a quick reminder before we get started into this episode. If you are interested in coming to the Bikini Competitor Mastermind happening toward the end of this year, around fall or end of fall, we're going to be diving into developing a healthy relationship with food and your body, not just during the off season, but also throughout prep to get over or avoid the post-show blues, or of course to prepare for your next show, or even like a pre-prep preparation. So that's going to be held in Southern California. If you are interested in coming, there is an interest form on the podcast page. That's celestial.fit/podcast. It's one of the buttons, or of course you can always message me on Instagram, celestial_fit, and I'll be happy to send you the link to get your name on that list. And if you're curious about some of the things we'll be covering, it's all on that page. But without further ado, today we are going to be speaking with a 30-year-old athlete who earned her pro card in 2017 at Junior Nationals, and she works as a full-time pharmacist. Amy Landry, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. And as you know, I gotta ask you, what's one thing you do right before your heel hits the stage?
Yes, the question. So I was trying to think of what my answer would be because I guess I don't really have like a ritual. I feel like I go to shows and I love making new friends and like connecting with all the girls. And, it doesn't matter how many times you've competed, how many times you've gotten on stage, you're always like so nervous and you're just like trying to make sure everything's perfect. And so I always find like when we're in line, like, about to go on stage, we're always like asking each other, like, does our hair look good? Like, are our suits in the right spot? Like, do I have makeup on my teeth? And so like, I feel like I'm always just like checking on the other girls, like making sure like they're good. They're checking on me, making sure I'm good. And then they'll like bring you out, right, as like the next person's finishing their routine. And I always just like envision my routine. I envision all the times I practice, how it's going to go. I just picture it going smooth. Of course, I try to picture being in that first call out and just having fun. All the hard work was done. So I just want to go out there and show everything I worked so hard for.
Absolutely. And you actually bring up something interesting that I remember when I was a first-time competitor, I was like, is this person lying? Like, is my bikini actually not in the right place? Like, can't tell.
I know.
You know what I mean? Because I remember when I did like pageants, I did one pageant and I was like, I felt like I couldn't trust many people. I felt like they just weren't my people. It was fun. The process was really fun,
Mm-hmm.
but some points of it were like all of a sudden it was like pageant day and no one was like cool anymore. And I was like, this is so
Yeah.
weird. Which isn't always true of all pageants. That might have just been my experience. But like obviously competing seems, it's just so different. And it's like, I've been at shows too where you're in line and sometimes you ask the girls around you and they're like, I don't want nothing to do with you. Don't talk to me. And then it's like, oh yeah, like you got something, you got lipstick in your teeth or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like I've been very fortunate in that I haven't really had any bad experiences competing. Like, everyone I've met is just so nice and so helpful. And like I said, it's like one of my favorite parts of competing. It's just like building the relationships with the other girls. I actually have come away with so many friends so far, and it's been really awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Everyone's always so sweet and nice, and I loved doing the shows that are in conjunction with pro shows because you just get to meet even more people, and I'm really hoping to do one this upcoming year because it'd be awesome to meet people like you, obviously guests who I've brought onto the show.
Yeah, that'd be so awesome.
Yes. So I wanted to jump right in and just like get into this with you because I have a lot prepared. And so my first thing is you are currently in prep, but you mentioned in a recent post that you actually normally get like heavier in your improvement seasons. And this is something that I think a lot of girls stress over or are afraid of or maybe don't want to talk about. So what do you think makes the difference between using that to your advantage or not using it to your advantage?
So for me, I feel like I've never really done a proper reverse diet, and it's not really due to like the fact that I can't control myself with food on like a daily basis. It's just, sometimes you feel so like restricted with social events when you're in prep that it's kind of hard to say no to like anything that comes up after prep. So I find that for me, it's like the social aspect after prep. I feel like everyone knows I'm done. So everyone's like, hey, let's go do stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not in prep anymore. Like, let's do it. And so um, for that reason, I'm also only 4'11". I'm like around 100 pounds. So
Oh my gosh, I
um,
did not know that.
yeah, I'm like I don't like have small people proportions, I guess. Like so from pictures, if you've never met me or seen me in person, no one really actually realized how small I truly am. And so I just tend to put on weight really quickly. And a lot of my family is obese. And so it's just, I feel like it's something I'm always fighting. But for me, I do what I can. And I just know that I'm going to hit that 110 mark, whether it's like, I mean, it's never happened to me like really like right away. Like I don't tend to put on like a ton of weight right away, but I know like I'm going to get there at some point, regardless of where my calories are. And I'll probably just stay there. And so for me, that I just know that that's what's going to happen. And it's just something that I've had to get more comfortable with. Obviously, it's not as comfortable being that heavy, but I know it's necessary. I don't take huge long off seasons. I haven't since I started competing. And I really think that that's how I've been able to make the progress that I have in such a short amount of time is just by, embracing the off season, and, I work hard in the gym, like in my improvement season and in my prep. And so I think that just, embracing that is kind of what has helped me be so successful.
I love that. And I love how you said it's not like you're putting it on like all at once, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what you're doing, it just happens, but it's a responsible gaining and it's also about enjoying these other aspects of life that maybe go and get put on hold when you're in prep. And you mentioned during that too that you gained weight like pretty easily and it's in your family as well. So you feel like you're fighting it. And then during your last prep, I know you were diagnosed with hypothyroidism. And when you were diagnosed with it, did it relieve any of the pressure or confusion you had as to maybe why your body function or responded certain ways that it had been?
Oh, absolutely. I remember my very first prep I did. I only dieted for 12 weeks, and before that, I didn't really have like a long history of dieting. I'd never like gotten really heavy or tried to lose a lot of weight. So like I was in a pretty good spot to diet my first prep. And I just remember being so cold all the time. Like,
Mm.
and I remember that I was on rotation for pharmacy school. And I remember I was working in this pharmacy and it wasn't even cold. And like we were moving around a lot and my lips were purple like every
Oh.
single day because of how cold I was. And I was just like, oh, like this is prep. Like I'm at a low body fat. Like this is normal. And so, my, for years, I just thought that that's just how I was. And then last year I started dieting and I noticed that like more of my hair was falling out in the shower, like my skin was getting really dry. And I wasn't losing weight how I normally would. And so I had just moved to a new city. I didn't have a doctor yet. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go get labs drawn on my own. I know kind of what I'm looking for. So I did like a full sex hormone panel. I did DHEA, and then I also did a thyroid panel. And my thyroid stimulating hormone came back at 57, which is like the normal upper limit of normal is like 4. So
Oh my God.
um, yeah, so I was like, okay, like either there's something wrong with this lab or there's something wrong with me. And so, and my T4, my T3 they were low, but they were not like super low to where you'd think like, okay, well, my thyroid stimulating hormone is 57. So like, I went and I saw a doctor and he was kind of like, wow, like that, I've never seen that before. And in my job that I have now as a pharmacist, like I review a lot of labs and I've never seen that before either. And so he's like, like before we jump to anything, like let's go ahead and draw another lab and see where you're at. So he drew my labs. My thyroid stimulating hormone came back at 39. So it did
Okay.
go down a little bit, but he was like, you definitely have hypothyroidism. And so I have been on generic Synthroid 50 micrograms, which is the second lowest dose of the medication since then. And I've gotten my labs drawn like so many times since then, in prep, off of prep. And it seems like that everything seems to be maintained there. So that's actually in a good place now.
Wow. Well, that's good. And
Yeah.
then I know you were also diagnosed with PCOS in your last off season. So what led you to go get
Yeah.
things checked out for that? Like, had you been dealing with those signs or symptoms? Like, what happened?
Yeah. So when I had my labs drawn, my estrogen was normal. My testosterone, it was normal, but it was like on the upper end of normal. And then my DHEA was also on the upper end of normal. Um, Pretty much like my periods have been very irregular. I mean, pretty much my whole life. And I have had ovarian cysts in the past. I didn't, I mean, I knew about PCOS, but I never thought about it for me until I had those labs drawn. And I was like, like maybe that's what's going on too. But, we wanted to tackle the hypothyroidism issue first. And then after I got done competing, I just started talking to all these women that I knew. And it just seems like so many people I knew were getting diagnosed with PCOS. And I was like, this is so weird. Like, I kept having these horrible pains for ovarian cysts, and my periods just were like still so irregular. And so I went back to my doctor. We got my labs redrawn, and my testosterone came back just slightly above normal, and then my DHEA was above normal this time. So that, in conjunction with just some of the symptoms I'd been having for years, we pretty much determined that I have PCOS. And right now, my doctor is pretty confident that we can manage it. But if it ever, becomes more of an issue, then, I'll probably end up following up with an endocrinologist for both of my issues. But right now, I'm followed up very closely by my doctor. I have labs drawn like every 3 months. And everything seems to be working well there. But again, that can contribute to some of the issues I've had with losing weight during prep or gaining weight in an off season. So, and I just got diagnosed with that not too long ago. So, and we started me on metformin. And so, I mean, that seemed to help a little bit. It's kind of a slow process. So, we'll just kind of see and see what happens.
Wow. And
Yeah.
just even hearing you talk about all that, obviously, like you're in the medical arena. So, I mean, I don't know much about pharmacy or how that works or what it takes to become a pharmacist, but given your background, were you kind of Like, did you see this coming? Like, how did your background play a role in that too?
I mean, it's definitely, it was a surprise to me. I'm like, I'm a pharmacist and like everyone thinks like, oh, pharmacists are like drug pushers, but like I'm very much the opposite. Like I like hate taking medication. I hate other people having to take medication. Like it's taken me a really long time to even remember to take like my birth control on time. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have these chronic illnesses now, like that am going to have to take medication for like maybe my whole life. And I was like, did I do this to myself? Like, did competing do this to me? Like, I'm smarter than this. Like, I'm a doctor. Like, I'm better than this. Like, how did I let this happen? So, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that these were probably issues that I had prior to competing and issues that I would have had regardless if I was competing or not. I mean, so many people have hypothyroidism and I didn't know that. I mean, if you look at like the list of like the 100 most prescribed drugs, Synthroid is like top 10.
Wow.
And then in speaking with so many women, like so many people that you would never know have PCOS, and people are just afraid to talk about it. And so, I try to be as upfront and honest as possible. And I think because I am a healthcare professional, coming from me, I think I have a little bit more information to provide. So, I try to, provide as much information as I can. I try to make the healthiest decisions I can with the diagnosis that I have. But it was definitely disappointing to me at first when I was diagnosed.
There's so many places I want to take this conversation. One of the things you said, you're not a drug pusher and you don't like taking meds. You don't like knowing others have to take meds. What got you into what you do?
So it's actually my first choice. I actually wanted to be a surgeon.
Wow.
And I job shadowed a general surgeon when I was in my second year of undergrad. And I was like, so like, how long did it take you to get to this point? And she was like, a really long time. And, I didn't really know a whole lot about the whole residency process or anything like that. I thought, you go to medical school and you do like a residency for a year and then you become a surgeon. It's like, that's not really actually the case. And so I was trying to think of other things that I could potentially want to do. And I didn't really want to have to change my whole entire major for my undergrad. And I really did want to be something in the health field. And I remember in a biochem class I had, I don't even know why we did this, but one of like our homework assignments was to go home and like read through a package insert for a drug. And like, I just remember being like, this is the best homework assignment ever. Like, this is so cool. And so I was like, you know what? Like, I wouldn't have to change my major. I would just have to take one test instead of another to get into pharmacy school. So maybe I'll just do that. And so I signed up for the entrance exam to get into pharmacy school and then took it like 2 weeks later. I did well on it and I was like, maybe I'll just like sit on this for a while and see. And then actually I took a year off after I graduated undergrad because I just like didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I just pulled the trigger and said, you know what, I'm just going to go to pharmacy school. I can't really think of anything else I'd want to do. And I thought drugs were pretty cool in undergrad. So like maybe it'd be fun. And so that's how I started being a pharmacist.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So it was roundabout, but I mean, I have a job now that it's like, not like a job that a lot of people know about. I actually work for an insurance company. So like I don't work at like Walgreens or CVS or something like that. So it's actually like a very rare job for a pharmacist, but I actually love the job that I have now. And I couldn't be happier with my choice to become a pharmacist.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that you're doing something you really love and are excited about. And it's definitely like within obviously the health industry, it's outside of being fitness related. And I know there are
Definitely is.
You know what I mean? Like and so many of us think
Yeah.
like I have to do something in the fitness industry, or I know there's listeners who go, well, I'm in a similar position to Amy. I'm not working in the fitness field. I feel overwhelmed with how to make my schedule work. Like what do you do on a normal day, or how do you make your schedule work, or how do you work all that in so you can have the dream job that you do, but also be present in this industry?
Yeah, it's definitely, I feel, more difficult to compete when you don't work in the fitness industry, or you're not like a coach or someone that works for themselves, because, you have to adhere to a schedule. It's not always ideal. Um, Fortunate for me, prior to this job, I did work in a retail setting, and I had to work weekends, and I had to work really long hours. I'm fortunate now where I only work Monday through Friday, but I do work 8.5 hour days. I have an hour commute to work and an hour commute home from work. So, my time that I can spend in the gym and meal prepping and everything like that is very limited. So I am someone that needs to like write everything down. I have
Me
a planner,
too.
and I bought this planner. It's like the same planner that I buy one every year. And I write everything I have to do down. And I just like love the feeling of like crossing things off. So it's almost like
Same.
everything has like, it's like such a rewarding feeling. Like I love it.
I add stuff back
But I
to a
like,
list, and I'm like, oh.
yes, I'm like, oh, I did the dishes, but that wasn't on my to-do list. Let me add that. Like, let
Yep.
me check but like almost everything has like a time. Like I have to do this at this time. Like I have to be home from the gym at this time so I can do this and go to bed at this time. So I mean, it is difficult, but I'm lucky that I feel like some people who are coaches, it's really hard to find that on off switch for them. And I feel like having the job that I have allows me to have that. So in a way that kind of benefits me. I don't have to feel obligated to work on the weekends or anything like that. And so I know every Saturday and Sunday, like I have that extra time there to do what I need to do and get things done. I also take advantage of help where I can get it. It sounds like super bougie, but I actually use like a grocery shopping app, and I have like someone go and grocery shop for me and deliver my groceries for me. I don't use it all the time, but it is helpful if you're like on a time crunch, just to save a little bit of time. Because, if you only have like 4 hours from the time you get home to go to the gym, eat, meal prep for the next day, go to bed, you need every minute you can get.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would agree. It's hard to find an on-off switch. Working for myself has made that like really difficult for me, but it's something I'm working on. And I find that is hard, and it's a common problem for so many people who do it. I sometimes find myself jealous of people who like can. So I can see the pros and cons of both for
Yeah.
sure. And you mentioned too, like you don't feel like there's an obligation to work on the weekend, so you get more time to like focus on yourself. Do you find that because you're commuting so much, you're driving a lot, you're
Yes.
working the whole day. I'm trying to get in the heads of the people who are living similar, in similar situations to you. And what I was
Hmm.
thinking is like, okay, how do you plan for that if all of a sudden like your coach gives you a new program and you have to have a little bit more time in the gym, or maybe you get a new meal plan and it's not from the weekend, so now you got to go and like have someone grocery shop. Like, how do you work all those kinds of things in?
Yeah. So typically, I kind of have like a, you know, do whatever it takes, suck it up type mentality.
Nice.
And so like it doesn't really matter like what obstacle is thrown at me. Like if I want it, like I'm gonna figure out a way to make it happen. And so if I have to do 20 more minutes of cardio that day, like I'm just gonna do it. And yeah, that might mean that I go to bed a little bit later that night, but I'll plan better for the next day. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so if my meal plan changes, I can, if it's a situation where like you know it's carbs or whatever is taken from a meal I've already eaten, then it's something I talk to my coach about and be like, hey, like look, like I'm already at work. All my meals are with me except for my pre-workout, my post-workout meal. This is what I have left. How can we make this work so I can still, hit my goal that we have for me for today? And then, for the next day, I just, plan ahead. So something like that doesn't happen.
Nice. That's cool. So
Yeah.
what were you going to say?
I said, you just have to be kind of flexible. It's very hard to be flexible when you're in prep, but you just kind of have to be realistic with what you can do. And honestly, like if one day is not going to kill you. So, if you just are out front and honest with your coach and say, look, like every single meal is with me today. Everything's like, I can't take anything out or substitute anything. Is it okay if I start tomorrow? Like, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. My coach always says, like, if you don't hear back in like the time frame maybe you expected, like you're still supposed to follow a plan, If there was an
Right.
urgent change that needed to be made, like you would know. So that
Exactly.
that makes total sense. And it also relieves the stress off of us as competitors. And I think it kind of reinstills that value and knowledge of there's no rush regardless. So you can always like choose a different show if you needed to, as long as you obviously haven't committed to it or you don't mind pulling out of it, or
Right.
whatever is going to work for your lifestyle is how you're going to be building and following a plan anyway. So I guess like trusting that it's all going to come together in the end is definitely helpful.
So much easier said than done, but yes.
Yes. Oh, yes. Especially for you right now, you're on prep, so I'm sure that goes to your mind.
Oh my gosh, every single day.
Totally. And
So
what
busy.
would you recommend then for other women who are competing with full-time jobs?
You just you're gonna get overwhelmed with how much you have to do, and you just have to be realistic. You're gonna have to sometimes say no to things or not do something one day and just do it the next day, and that's okay. You don't want to stress yourself out with trying to do too many things at once. And I feel like it's common for when people are in prep, like when you're getting really close, that parts of your life do kind of lag. Like you giving so much into your prep that other parts of your life, may not be as much of a priority, and that's normal. That's going to happen. And so if you can't do something one day, just push it off to the next. And that's why I like to, with my to-do list, I like to prioritize things that I absolutely have to get done today, things that maybe I would be nice if I could get done today, and then things that could definitely wait for a different day, but if I have time today, it'd be awesome if I could get it done.
Yes, I love that. Such great advice, and it's just helpful even for anybody, regardless, to prioritize that. So I love that you shared that. And we talked a little bit about obviously some of the medical things you've been facing yourself, and something else that happened was, I mean, just recently during this prep, right? You found out you have, what is it, GERD, and then gash. I don't know how to pronounce them, so you got to just tell
Yeah,
me what's
no.
going on.
Yeah. So this and I don't even know if this is all related, but I remember, it's funny, 'cause it's like literally the 2-year anniversary of it happening, but I remember it was peak week for junior nationals in 2017, and I remember like my feedback from junior USA's, which is 4 weeks before that, was that I was too lean. So I was like, trying to eat all this food going into junior nationals, and I just kept having these like horrible stomach pains, horrible stomach cramps. And so I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't drink my water. Like the week was just not going according to plan, and we didn't know why. And I guess like kind of going back to the PCOS thing, I've been on like literally every different type of birth control in the entire world to try to control my periods. So at the time I was on, it's called Nexplanon. It's a implant that goes in your arm, and you keep it in your arm for 3 years. It just like slowly releases progestin to act as your birth control. And one of the side effects of that medication is you get headaches. And I remember it got rid of my period, which is great because again, I have like very heavy, horrible periods. So I was like, but I had the headaches. And I was like, I'm willing to put up with these headaches every single day if it means I don't have a period. So because of that, I was taking a lot of ibuprofen, like 3 times a day, every single day for like 2 years. And that's like very hard on your stomach. And, you know, me being a pharmacist, I should have known better, but you know, those who can't do teach. So,
Yes.
so,
Same as I do.
yeah. So, you know, I think I caused a lot of stomach issues doing that. And so, you know, like after the show, it kind of like slowly went away. But like, I have like a lot of acid reflux, and I have for pretty much my whole life, to the point where I thought it was normal. And I remember having a conversation with someone, and I was like, yeah, you know, like when this happens, and they're like, no. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
okay. So like
alrighty.
maybe that's not normal. And so I started taking it's called a proton pump inhibitor. Basically, it helps decrease the amount of acid in your stomach. And some of the issues I was having started going away, but I was like, I don't know, maybe it's not that. And so I stopped taking it. And then I started getting this like really weird feeling in my stomach where it just felt like I had cold water in my stomach and up into my esophagus all the time. And so I was like, this is like not normal. So that's when I went to a gastroenterologist, and we did an endoscopy, and he's basically like, yeah, you have GERD, which is gastroesophageal reflux disease, which is where you have reflux coming up into your throat. And then I have gastritis, which is inflammation of your stomach. And I also have a small hiatal hernia, which is where essentially the part that closes your stomach from your esophagus, it's like up pushed through my diaphragm. So it
Wow.
doesn't close all the way. So
Oh.
basically, it's very common. A lot of people have it. My dad actually has it. So I just have to take this proton pump inhibitor twice a day, every day for probably 6 months. And then hopefully by that time, the inflammation will have gone down. And then, you know, everything hopefully will be fine. But a lot of people end up being on their proton pump inhibitors long term. And I feel like that's probably what's going to happen to me. But right now, everything has been great. My digestion, this whole prep has been the best it's ever been.
Wow.
For a while, yeah, like for a while, I just like I wasn't hungry ever, and it didn't matter how much I ate. Now it's like my hunger cues are back. Like I don't have any stomach issues for the first time in what feels like forever.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is amazing. And I was going to ask you too, like, did you change up your diet to like help ease any of the things you've been diagnosed with?
So my gastroenterologist, he gave me like a list of foods I'm not supposed to have. And, you know, a lot of the things that were on there were like chocolate, tomatoes, onions, garlic, alcohol, you know, things like that. And it's like in prep, like I don't really have a lot of
Yeah.
that anyway.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've been dieting for I think 2 weeks at the time that I had this endoscopy done. So, you know, I wasn't really eating a lot of that at that point anyway. The one thing that he did say is that I couldn't have caffeine, which I was like, okay, sure, yeah. So I did that for like 2 weeks, and then I was like, yeah, no, that's not happening. So, but I mean, a lot of it, I think, I just wasn't eating to begin with. And then just we had increased the dose of the medication that I was on at the time of the endoscopy, and I think that that's really helped too. And because I have the hiatal hernia, it's really hard for my stomach to hold a lot of food at one time. And so, you know, as prep goes on, you eat less food, right? And so I think actually the smaller meals and the less food is helping.
That's good.
Yeah.
Just got to stay on prep.
Right. Yeah. Stay on prep forever.
Isn't that so crazy? Like, that's helping you now. And then there's like, okay, well, if you kept doing that, then there's like a long-term effect or damage to that, unless you like slowly brought it back
Right.
up. Like, everyone is so different. We don't even know what people could be going through.
I know. And I mean, like I said, I try to be, you know, as like upfront, honest, you
Yeah.
know, as possible on social media, but like I haven't been as, I guess, upfront and open about this prep as I have in the past. And it's honestly because I wasn't even planning on prepping this year, except for there's a show in Michigan that I pretty much had committed to since last year. So,
Hmm.
I said I was going to do it. So I was going to do it regardless. But I pretty much planned on taking the year off until that point. Just because I was, supposed to have a lot of things going on. I was supposed to move to Texas and, I had all these health problems, but, things just are not working out how they're supposed to. And I feel like, and this is probably the same for a lot of competitors, is competing is like my safe place and where I feel comfortable. I feel like my life is so much more in control when I'm in prep, because I feel like everything is so much more like scheduled and you have to like follow everything to a T. And so I felt like I just needed to get control of my own life back. And so, I just decided I needed to do something for me. And so I just decided to start prepping for a show. And I felt like sharing it on social media would somehow take it away from it just being mine. And I just so badly needed something that was mine at the time. And I
Mhm.
just wasn't really ready to share it yet. But I feel better where I'm at now. And so that's why I was like, you know what? It's time. It's time to share it. People probably know by now. So like, I'm just going to put it out there. Like, yes, I'm in prep.
You guessed it. Yep, totally. And it's so crazy you say that too about like when you're in prep, like your life feels more in control, because we've had so many people say that and agree to that, and I totally agree with that. And recently I was feeling like not out of control at all, not in the least bit, but more like how could I bring some discipline from prep? Again, not that I was like not disciplined. It's so hard to explain this. Like it doesn't even need to be explained, but in the sense of like sometimes there are things and pieces of prep that like you can bring into your life without necessarily committing to a show. But then when you do commit to a show, it does feel good. It is something that's like yours, and it's something that it's like you're looking forward to it. But I know right now for me, like my body's in no place to prep, but I still craved that. And so I was like, okay, well, what can I
Yes.
do? So I was like, okay, well, I can pretend I'm on prep without following a prep plan or having a show. And like that mindset
Mm-hmm.
has helped me so much, like setting little goals and staying like even more on point with my plan. Like I'm just feeling good. And I think sometimes we go through those ebbs and flows of life where we're like, right now this is what I need and that's okay, but now I need this and that's fine too. And for you it's like, okay, I want to get into a prep, and I want it to be mine, and I don't want to announce it quite yet. I just want to experience this for me.
Yeah. And then a part of it too is I'm actually, well, I have help, but myself with the help of my boyfriend now. And so it's like so scary
Wait,
putting
did
it
you say
out
you're
there that
prepping
you're like
yourself?
prepping. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and so it's like so scary putting that out there when you're like, if it doesn't work out, it's your fault, like you're prepping yourself, So it's also been a little scary too, putting that out there, just because like, no one likes to fail, right? And so it's like, I feel like if I don't show up when I'm the one prepping myself, it'll feel like I failed.
Mm. That is so interesting because I feel like that's just so relatable. Like that feeling of, well, if I announce a show day or if I announce that I'm doing something for myself and then I fail, everybody's gonna know I failed, or everyone's gonna know I missed the
Right.
mark, or I'm gonna have to tell everybody I failed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's such a real feeling. Like even just hearing you say it, I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's not a good feeling. Like we don't ever want that. And then that, of course, that feeling can then sometimes lead us to take actions that aren't beneficial for us. Like we've talked to some people on here who are like, oh, well, I had to pull out of a show. And as much as that sucked to have to like say I had to pull out, is like, it was best for me. And it's like, yeah, I mean, what pain is worse, right? Like having to
Yeah.
say on social media, like I failed, or like trying to push the failure. Like it's not worth it. It's like better to always do what's best for you. And I think putting yourself out there also gives you that like that extra little bit of edge, to be like, okay, like I'm gonna crush this. Like I have a even more accountability.
Right. Yeah. And I do like that part of the accountability, but one of the things that, I've done differently this prep is I always have like a deadline, right? I always have like a goal and I'm like, I'm going to do this show. And there are shows that I have my eyes set on and I would love to do, but, it's more of like, hopefully I'm ready by then. And if I'm not, that's okay. There's a million shows, like I'm not done. They're always going to be there, and so there's like that added pressure is taken off in a way. But again, I do have shows that I would like to do. So I would like to be ready by then, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and that's okay.
Yeah, accepting that, like, absolutely
Mm-hmm.
gives you so much peace of mind. And I think it also makes it easier to get into that sustainable mindset of like, this is a lifestyle, like I'm gonna get there regardless, but I can still do this without having an exact date. Like I can still make these commitments to myself every day to improve or to show up or to get closer to that stage shape that we're looking for without having a date necessarily.
Right. Because I feel like sometimes when you're so stressed out about the date, it actually ends up hindering your progress rather than helping you.
Yeah, has that ever happened to you?
I mean, the only time I really put pressure on myself, was when I was going for my pro card. And then, last year my preps were really hard, and I didn't really pick shows that I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to do these shows, and if I don't do them, like I'm never going to be able to compete again, and I wasn't like, oh, I need to qualify for the Olympia. I'm like, I just need to like compete as a pro and see what happens. I mean, it's hard. One of the hard parts about working for a company and not working for yourself is, I am limited in the amount of time off I can take, because I'm only allotted a certain amount of hours of paid time off per year. And I can only take time off so long as I have paid time off. I can't just take time off and not get paid. My company doesn't allow that. And then also, too many people have that day off. For example, like I don't get that day off if I didn't get to it first. And so, it's sometimes hard too to have your mindset on a show and be like, well, I'm going to do this show. And then, you either don't have the paid time off to do it, or, too many people have that day off and you can't. And so, for me, I just kind of had to roll with it. And so I never really had like the issue of, well, I need to be ready by this day. But I did actually start prepping in the beginning of this year. And I just did it because, I was like, well, I'm supposed to be prepping. Like, that's what you do. You start prep. But I was actually going to move to Texas. My boyfriend moved to Dallas in January. And I took my law exam for Texas. I'm a licensed pharmacist in Texas. But it's taken a really long time to find a job there. So, like, in the meantime, I'm living with his parents.
Oh my
And
gosh.
and I have an apartment in Texas that he's living in that I'm not. And so it was like a lot of stress in the beginning of the year trying to get like all the pieces moving to move. And so things were not happening. Like my body was like, no. And so I do know for me personally, like stress has a big impact on my body. And so it just wasn't the right time for me. So I know that if I was down to the wire and I was super stressed out about getting ready in time, like my body would totally have the opposite response.
Totally. And then, like, you brought up a good point about the paid time off and the time off, and like something that it got me thinking about was with the point system to qualify for the Olympia now. Like, so many girls have to do like so many shows just to
Yes.
start getting points. So like it's sort of weird because I never even considered that. Like I didn't even think about how someone who maybe can't get that time off work is now at a disadvantage that they didn't ask for.
Yeah, I think the point system is great. I mean, it does, you really do have to earn your spot at the Olympia.
Yes.
But it does make it very challenging for those of us who can't take our kids with us, or who are limited to their time off that they have. And so it does definitely put me at a disadvantage. I can't compete as much as I would like to. So, I either have to do really, really well at the shows I do
Yeah.
go to, or I have to pick really high point shows. I'm going to be really strategic about it, which, it's coming close to the end here. And, like there's not really that many shows left. So, if I do want to make it to that, 2019 Olympia, I don't really have that many opportunities. So, I just do what I can, and, we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, it definitely makes things very difficult, especially there are some shows where the pros have to get there like on Thursday, even though they don't compete until Saturday. So, it's really hard for me because, then I have to take 2 days off rather than just taking like Friday off and flying in on Friday. So yeah, it definitely makes things very difficult.
Yeah, why is that, by the way? Like, why do some shows require you guys to get there earlier?
So if it's like a pro am show, sometimes the amateur and the pros have to check in on the same day, and they'll have the amateurs competing on both Friday and Saturday. Sometimes they'll even split up the pros and have some of the pros compete on Friday and Saturday.
Oh, wow.
And so they want you to check in on Thursday, so they just have everyone check in on Thursday, even if you don't compete until Saturday. So that's kind of why they do that.
Interesting. I did not even know that.
hmm
How do they split up pros though? Like then how do you determine placings and comparisons? Or is everyone at finals together?
Well, they'll do like the classes. So they'll do like, say like all of figure prejudging on Friday, and then they'll do like everyone's
Oh,
finals on Saturday. Or sometimes they'll do like the whole thing. So they'll do like women's physique finals and prejudging and finals on Friday. And then they're done on Friday. But
wow.
it's just these bigger shows, especially if it's a pro amateur show, you just have so many competitors that it's like impossible for the judges to sit there for that long for one day, to try
Yeah.
to judge all those athletes. So they split it up. So I mean, I understand, I totally get it. But yeah, it does make things a little bit more difficult for people who are in my position.
Oh, totally. So you also brought something up earlier about how like they gave you feedback about being too lean, and I think it's
hmm
easy for us to get caught up in chasing the leaner look all the time, and it's almost like addicting. So um
hmm
like back in 2017 you placed third at junior USA's, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. And then
Yep.
there is when they told you or you learned that leaner isn't always better. So what made you kind of realize that? And then what did you change in order to, I know you said you were eating a lot, but then of course your stomach was not responding very
hmm
nicely to you. So what did you do to bring even a better package to junior nationals?
Yeah, so for me, it kind of always like works the same. So like in the beginning, I lose weight pretty slow, and then towards the end, like things really pick up and move really quickly. And so it's kind of hard to get ahead of that. Kind of like you said, like chasing the leaner look is really addicting. Like this is why we do it, right? Like we love being shredded and super lean. So, it's really hard to stop yourself from getting to that point, because for me, towards the end, it happens so easy that it's like, I'm just going to keep rolling with it. Like, I like being lean. Like, let's do this. And, that was my fourth show. Junior USA's was my fourth show. So I didn't really know a whole lot, I guess, about what they were looking for in bikini. And so when you have this mindset of like, oh, I have to get leaner, I have to get leaner, you think leaner is better. And so I showed up at the show, and, I was very, very, very lean. And I ended up getting third. And then, I was like looking at the pictures, and I had like a very prominent rib cage for someone that's very small. And so like the pose I was doing also like wasn't very flattering for someone that has a large rib cage. And I remember one of the judges' feedback to me was, well, you could see a lot of your ribs on stage. And I was like, okay, wow, like that is not good. And so it was kind of like a reality check for me, like, wow, okay, like this isn't what they're looking for. I have to figure out a way to be lean, but also be not be too lean. And so I knew I had 4 weeks to kind of figure out what that meant. And so, I just kind of essentially reverse dieted. And I actually ended up weighing less at junior nationals than I did at junior USA's, but I somehow brought a fuller package. And I think that in part it was on accident, because I was like really bloated and holding a lot of water, just from all the stomach problems I was having. So, I think it was like a perfect storm that came together. And I brought the look that they wanted, but it was very hard mentally going from, being really lean, and I love that look. For me, that's the look I love. And so from going from something I was really proud of to, oh my gosh, like I have to put on body fat from now in the next 4 weeks. Like that was mentally very challenging for me. And I remember leading up to Junior USA's, like I was posting a lot and I was just like really proud of my physique. And I kind of just like pulled back a little bit in those 4 weeks between, because I was just like, I questioned myself. I was like, can I do this? Like, I just don't know if like maybe I'm not meant to go pro. Like, I just don't know if I can handle this. And so I actually almost quit a week out from junior nationals, because I was like, I just don't know if I can do this. But my boyfriend was like, Amy, like you're not quitting. Like you're going pro. You're going to do this. And so, it ended up working out. And I think I will say, like, I owe Kenny Wallach. I don't know if you know who he is. He's like a posing coach. Yeah. So I feel like I owe a lot of my success to him, because I actually posed with him the day before junior nationals. And I told him what my feedback was. And he's like, well, we have to change your posing then. Like, we just have to, because that genetically, that's just how you are. And so like we changed my posing, like completely, totally changed my front pose. And like, I really honestly think that if we wouldn't have done that, if I didn't tell him what that feedback was, I would not have gone pro at that show.
Wow. So what was your posing like before, and then how did you guys change it?
So the front pose I was doing initially was like, like the traditional, like not side shot. It's like the front shot where you're like, your both feet are like, yeah. So it was that one. And it was with my left side forward, which is my more prominent rib cage. And so we tried switching it, and that just looked weird to the other side. So he's like, well, like, he's like, don't think of this as like the pose that you have to do, because it's a really great pose. He's like, but this is the pose you have to do. And so like I pretty much by default, like my front pose is my front pose. I just don't really have another option. So my front pose now is the side pose, which I feel like is more common now anyway. And I'm on my body now that I like know how to do it. Cause I mean, I tried before, I saw so many people doing it, and I was like, I'm not really doing this right. Like, this does not look right on me. But he, like worked with me and showed me how to do it. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, I think I can do this. And so I was like, I don't care what I have to do to nail this posing and figure it out in less than 24 hours, but I'm going to do it. So I just like went on stage and just tried out this new routine. And it like I said, it was like the perfect storm that came together somehow.
Sounds like it. That is so, I can't even imagine being told like to change. I was told one time to change this like one little piece, and that was fine. Like, no biggie. I can do that. Like, coming up from comparisons, when you walk back, like hold this pose instead. And I was like, I could do that. But then like I could have totally seen if my whole routine had changed, like the amount of time and effort that goes into your routine, your whole entire prep, and improvisations, and then all of a sudden. But it also shows like how willing you were to make it happen. And I mean, that's a huge testament to you as an athlete.
Yeah, I danced for 9 years. So, I'm like pretty quick with changes, and I can pick things up like that pretty quick. But I had the whatever it takes mentality for sure going into those shows in 2017. I mean, I wanted my pro card, and I was going to do what it took to get it, and if that meant practicing my posing a million times to try to nail it, like that's what I was going to do.
Totally. And before earning your pro card, I remember you made a pose like you would receive like the magazines from NPC, which by the way, I totally have a cutout and it's on my vision board of like a first place, but you would receive those and tell yourself, before you would go, it was like, okay, I'm gonna place, and my placing's gonna change. At what point did it hit you that your moment was actually coming, where you would be the one receiving your pro card? Or did it ever hit you?
So when I first started competing, I didn't really like know anything about going pro or what a national show was or what the Olympia was. I just knew that there was competing, and I knew that there was this thing that you could become nationally qualified, but I didn't really know what that meant. And so, I did my first show, I won like everything, and I got nationally qualified. And then my coach at the time was like, okay, like, well, let's go to nationals then. And I was like, okay, whatever. And so I didn't really know what that meant. But I remember at one point that I got like a magazine for junior nationals later on, like at some point, and I was like, you know what? Next year, like I'm gonna be in that magazine. I'm gonna be in there one day, like I am. And so like I remember we were getting ready for junior nationals in 2016, and I was like, you know, if I just place top 10, like that's all I care about now. Like I just want to place top 10. And you know, I always had in the back of my mind, like, you know, I want to be in that magazine. Like, I really want to be in that magazine. And so like, you know, I went there my first year. And actually the same thing happened. I actually posed with Kenny Wallach again, like in 2016 and 2017. He changed my posing in 2016 too, like right before the show.
Wow.
And so he's done it to me 2 years in a row. But so I actually ended up placing fifth in my class, my first year at a national show. So I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe I can do this, right? Like maybe I can actually like be good at competing, you know? And like I remember getting that magazine and I was in it and I was like, next year, like I'm gonna be in first place. Like I'm going pro. And it was just a different mentality I had in 2017. Like I knew that I was going pro. Like I had times where I was like, you know, I just don't know. I think we all go through those moments of doubt, but like at deep down, like I just knew that I was going to do what it took. And if it didn't happen at junior nationals, well, I was going to go on to the next one and I was going to go on to the next one. And it didn't matter because I was going to get my pro card in 2017.
I love that. You were so committed. You had the vision and you were just like, this is the end result. However I get there, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I love it. Detaching from the how, and also that a little bit of ignorance is bliss in the beginning. And then as soon as you knew, it was like, oh, my fire's lit. It's on.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's like I was like so naive. I had no idea. And then I placed fifth and I was like, oh, okay, like this is a thing. And then I just like started looking more into it and was like, well, I'm going for it then.
That is awesome. I really like that. And visualization and those powerful affirmations and really like incantations, like this is what I'm doing. This is who I'm becoming. It's so influential in our journey to success, in any journey that is. But yeah, it's awesome that you applied it to that as well and it paid off.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So what advice do you have for competitors who are going for their pro card? And then of course, what advice do you have for people who haven't competed before, maybe you're thinking about competing?
So for someone going for their pro card, kind of, I guess what we already talked about is, I think you do have to have that whatever it takes mentality, because it's going to be hard. You know, you're going to a national show where everyone wants to get their pro card. Everyone looks great, you know, and so you have to do whatever it takes, but you also have to know what that means to you and your limitations with that. You know, like I would never have made an irresponsible decision with like my health or like an irresponsible decision with financially or with my job. Like I would never put anything that really was, you know, important in my life at risk just to go pro. You know, so I had to be realistic about it. And, you know, I was luckily I was in a position where, you know, my health was great. I had just started a new job, you know, as a pharmacist, and everything was going really well. So everything aligned for me, but, you know, competing, it's always going to be there. And so I feel like sometimes people are so focused on, well, I have to go pro. I have to get my pro card. But they let other parts of their life kind of fall away and they risk too much. And so, like I said, you do have to have that whatever it takes mentality, but, you know, just be smart about it. And advice I'd give for someone that's a first time competitor would probably be, make sure you know why you're competing. I feel like so many people get into competing because they feel like, oh, well, you know, when I have a six pack or, you know, if I get on stage in this shiny bikini, like I will finally love myself. Like I will finally feel at peace with my body and I'll be happy, when like that's not the case. And, you know, sometimes competing does the opposite, you know, and I feel like a lot of competitors feel like we're never satisfied. We always want to be better. And so we're very hard on ourselves. And so if you have the expectation of, if I just do this, like I will love my body and I'll be happy, like you're going to be disappointed. You need to compete because you really love bodybuilding and you really think that you're going to love it. And if you don't, there's just no point in doing it.
I absolutely love that. There's nothing better that could have been said, I don't think. I love everything you just said and such great and powerful advice. And a few things that I'm going to take away as really powerful golden nuggets is that mentality of like, do whatever it takes, but within what that means for you, like define that for you. And then I think you hit the nail on the head with like, don't get into competing to love yourself. I'm a huge believer that we have to take care of those things before we get into competing. Like competing cannot be our Band-Aid or our mask, because as soon as we make it that, it absolutely will make those things worse. And when we're done and that mask has to come off, or now, we're still in the bodybuilding world, like we still have to do an improvement season, or we have to at least recover after a show if we don't like it. Well, that's going to be tough if you started from the wrong headspace.
Yeah, exactly.
So everything, you've shared today has been so amazing. And I really, really appreciate you coming on here and taking the time and being so open and giving us so many amazing golden nuggets.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's been really fun.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad you've had fun. And I want everybody to be able to say thank you and, of course, tag you as they're listening. So where can people find you and connect with you?
So I'm pretty much, I'm on Instagram. My Instagram is at Amy Landry, IFBB Pro.
Awesome. So I'm going to make sure that that is in the show notes page so that everybody listening, that's always going to be on www.celestial.fit/podcast. And when you get there, if you're listening to this now, her episode is going to be at the very top of the page. If not, you can check the category section for Amy's episode. And with all of that being said, the reviews you guys leave on iTunes, every time you subscribe, anytime you post about it, share it with friends, teammates, reach out to me, all that stuff means so much. It goes a long way, and I really appreciate those of you who have become patrons on patreon.com. That is always so cool. It means a lot to me, and it does go a long way. A little bit goes a long way, and I appreciate you. I appreciate that. And remember, we are getting closer and closer to the Bikini Competitor Mastermind. So if you haven't registered yet, make sure you do that or reach out directly, like I said at the beginning. So with all that being said, Amy, again, thank you so, so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And to everybody listening, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.